Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, because my last two uploads have kind of been going back to the basics of D&D and how to create your first character and kind of walking you through the D&D basic character sheet, I thought I'd kind of finish up that series by explaining how to create effective character backstories. The story of your character, the background of your character, and just the story of their life. Now, if you do end up enjoying today's video, then please don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to see more beginners content like this, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and comment down below that you are enjoying this series, if you really want to call it that. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Welcome to D20 in Disguise. Alright, so to get us started, let's discuss what types of resources are useful when creating your first backstory for your first D&D character. Well, if you skim through the player's handbook, you'll find that it doesn't really cover how to create backstories. It covers how to create backgrounds, how to create your character for the most part, but it kind of jumps over backstories. The player's handbook just sets you loose and says, lol, have fun. Well, on the other hand, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, kind of a supplementary resource for D&D 5th edition, really covers backstories quite well and lays out some options for you and some things for you to think about while creating your character's backstory. If you have Xanathar's Guide handy, go ahead and turn to page 61, where backstories are briefly covered, and then it moves into all of the tables and details which you should take into account when creating your first backstory. Quote, "The character creation rules in the player's handbook provide all the information you need to define your character in preparation for a life of adventuring. What they don't do is account for all of the circumstances that shaped your character during the years between your birth and the start of your career as a member of a class. What did your character accomplish or experience before deciding to become an adventurer? What were the circumstances of their birth? How large is your family, and what sorts of relationships do you have with your relatives? Which people were the greatest influences on you during your formative years, for better or for worse? To answer these questions and more, you could use the tables and the advice in this section to compose a well-developed backstory for your character, an autobiography of sorts, that you can use to inform how you role-play the character. Your DM can draw from this material as the campaign proceeds, creating situations and scenarios that build off of your previous life experiences." So as you can see, this ties heavily into your background, which we covered in part 2 of how to create your first D&D character. There will be a link to that in the description. But it heavily links to your background as well, the career which you had before becoming an adventurer and taking up the class which you now have. And just like it outlined in Xanathar's, this is very personality driven. This determines how you roleplay your character. Their past experiences determine the choices which they make. And a backstory is completely vital for your first D&D character. Now, a piece of advice, don't go all out with 40-page long backstory, whatever. Don't go crazy. Just start with like 1 page outlining your background, your backstory, and all that stuff. Or 2 pages or 3 pages. I'd say no more than 3 pages. Like, I completely understand this is a very fun thing to do to create your first backstory. But simple is beautiful. Start out at a small amount first. So in Xanathar's, as you can see, it kind of outlines creating your entire backstory over pages 61 to 73, but it divides creating your backstory up into 4 main sections: origins, personal decisions, life events, and supplemental stuff. Let's start with origins. Quote, "The usual first step in creating your character's life story is to determine your early circumstances. Who were your parents? Where were they born? Did you have any siblings? Who raised you? You could address these questions by using the following tables. Now, before we actually jump into the tables in the following pages, I want to point something out which is very important. The first few years, like childhood and teenagehood, and maybe even early adulthood, are very influential in humans' lives. Like, firstly, you learn a substantial amount during those years, and secondly, your personality forms over that time. So, when creating your backstory for your character, you should realize that the things which happen during their origins influence their personality, influence their future choices, influence who they are. For example, if, let's say, your character was abandoned as a child and joined the military, they would probably, at least you could play it this way, they would probably not want to really be around people. They wouldn't rely on others, they would rely on themselves, because they can't trust the human tendencies of others. That origin story heavily influences how they respond to things and just their general personality. Anyway, let's look over the actual tables for the origin sections in Xanathars. Parents. You either know or don't know who your parents are. Makes sense. They have some hereditary tables for some partial species. For example, half-elves, half-orcs, so on and so forth. They have a table for They have a table for where you were born, which also plays into what kind of social status you were born into. They have amount of siblings, birth order, what kind of family you have, and a few other tables. But those first few tables are the most important. You can obviously look over all of these, kind of survey, ooh, that sounds really interesting. I'm gonna pick something from over there, and grab something from over there, and mix that together. And that's creative stuff, I love it. But just start with the basics first, and then if you see something which really catches your eye, try and fit that into your backstory, while not cluttering it up too much. Next, we have family lifestyle, what kind of lifestyle you had to live through, and your childhood home, which is influenced by that lifestyle. The childhood memories table, I feel like, would also be very vital in your character's perspective. If they remember being rejected as a child, they're not going to trust other people. Like, that is the experience which they've gotten. They're not going to break from it. Their brain has learned to say, no, I should not trust others. Or if they just were given everything in their life, that's the outlook which they're going to get on life. Like, they're just going to say, I'm going to get everything in life, I don't have to worry about anything. People are just going to give me what I want. Next, they go into personal decisions and into pretty much your background. Now, your background is essentially a class before your class. What kind of job, what kind of occupation did you have before you became an adventurer? Also covered in part 2 of how to create your first character. Link in the description. They have different tables for why you became your background, why you chose that occupation, why you became an acolyte, why you became a folk hero, why you became a criminal, why you became a noble, and so on and so forth. And then they have tables for why did you choose the class which you are as an adventurer? Why did you become a ranger? Why did you become a wizard, a barbarian, a rogue? Why did you choose that class above all the others? And then we move on to the life events section. Now, life events also heavily influences the personality and life decisions and just general decisions of your character. Perhaps they won the lottery. That could be a big life event. Or maybe they were kidnapped. That could also be a big life event. Maybe they inherited a bunch of money from a recently deceased family member. I don't know. But those life events can be big things which can really affect either their standing, their social status, their personality, how their outlook on things. it can affect a bunch of things. Let's just outline some of the possibilities which they have on their life events table. You spent time working in a job related to your background. Start the game with an extra 2d6 gold pieces. You had a supernatural experience. Roll on the supernatural events table to find out what it was. You encountered something magical. Roll on the arcane's matters table. Something truly strange happened to you. Roll on the weird stuff table. You made the friend of an adventurer. Use the supplemental tables and work with your DM to add more detail to this friendly character and establish how your friendship began. As I said, these things are kind of like a wild card. They could be anything. They could be something really bad for your character. They could be something really good for your character. They could give you more money, more skills, less skills. It really is luck of the draw. And that's really what the rest of the life events tables and the supplemental tables have to deal with. All of these different things which have happened throughout your life which aren't exactly normal, which have either helped or hindered you in your road to being an adventurer. And I think that just about covers everything which is to be covered in Xanathars, which I would say are the absolute bare bones basics for creating your first D&D backstory. And I feel like it's a really good place to start at. Like, Xanathar's Guide to Everything really covers the basics well. And if you don't already have yourself a copy of Xanathars, I would highly suggest it. I'm sorry if this video felt a little shorter than usual. I've been kind of busy in my life and trying to get a lot of things done. But I also think this is kind of a more creative subject to cover. More open to you guys and what you decide to create. You can decide what you want to create. It's not limited by rules. There's not a certain formula which you can use. It's just creativity. It's just what you decide to be, which can't really be taught. It just needs to be experimented with. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day. Keep on creating, and I will see you in the next video.